Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Determined Podcast. My name is Pasta Guy, and here with me today, as always, is the wonderful Cupcake Paints. And as our special guest, we have Dorked, the creator of Inverted Fate.
Also a very weak to cats type person.
uh, yes. Yeah. Dork, could you possibly explain a bit about yourself for those who may or may not know who you are?
Sure. So, like they said, I created Inverted Fate. It's a webcomic slash multimedia project that's been going around 5 years now. Kind of takes the idea of what if Frisk lost in the final pacifist battle and a new timeline gets created, explores some elements of role swapping while keeping character personalities and exploring sort of the cause and effect of like what would happen if these characters being who they are were put into new positions in the story and the consequences of how they change everything.
Huh. Very interesting, and it's a lovely story. I've only been able to read a little bit of it before. Well, I watched the dub of it, and I've seen bits and pieces like out of context,
Right, yeah.
like the later boss fights and stuff.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
Well, yeah, like you said, it's going for 5 years.
Yep, 5 years, and honestly, it's crazy just how much has come out just within the past year. Because last year, Philip Lowell approached me to make a playable version of the Metaton fight from Chapter 46, and we worked together. And since then, we've been collaborating and doing more comic accurate battles that include things like the Papyrus functionality. And then Philip also helped finish the Undyne fight animation, contributed to the next few videos we put out late last year. So it's been a huge shift in momentum since then.
Yeah. Speaking of huge, though, we got a pretty big audience here. Well, by our standards, we got 21 people watching on YouTube and 9 people watching on Twitch. Thank you all for coming.
It says 13 watching on Twitch for me.
Well,
oh yeah, FMS made the borders. Oh, hi, Philip. We have some Inverted Fate team members.
We
in the
spoke
Twitch
of
chat.
him, and then he appeared.
Just speak their name and they shall appear.
I guess that's my forbidden power.
Yeah, so as always, we have a couple of questions that we're gonna ask you, but of course we'll be taking questions from the chat and stuff, unless you're not comfortable with any question we do / receive. So yeah, I guess the first question is. First question is, what gave you the idea for Inverted Fate?
So there's a couple of things. I mean, one big thing that kind of was the impetus for it is I saw how a lot of role swaps in the fandom's early days were just kind of personality swapping reskin, and because I'm someone who's been in fandom for like well over a decade, I'm an adult, so I've seen like role swaps in other fandoms, and generally I just personally always gravitated more to the concept when characters were still true to themselves. Because when you take, like, say, someone like Papyrus, who's very big, bombastic, and idealistic, and you put him in a different position in the story, like let's say someone takes an AU where he's in the king's position, his personality and choices would probably lead him down a very different path from Undertale Asgore. So when I saw that there wasn't really a lot of that potential being explored, I really wanted to focus on what kind of shenanigans could come from that. Like, for example, first idea I really had was, well, Undyne as a scientist would probably be like more of an over-the-top mad scientist who would make all sorts of crazy things like a giant mecha, and then boom, that became a key plot point. And I also thought, well, she's already got determination, so what would happen if a monster who's determined does the determination experiments, and like her stubborn drive to never give up would probably make her handle the stress and complications way different from Alfie's. So like I got more and more ideas, but I specifically wanted to work with a much smaller number of swapped characters because I felt like swapping everyone and anyone when trying to make a more narratively driven project would make things extremely complicated. So I just took the 6 lost souls or main monsters and wanted to keep, like, for example, Metaton, because I thought he and Undyne would have a very different dynamic and that Undyne could possibly push his ego down. And from there, 6 main monsters. Hey, why don't I tie it to the final pacifist battle? 6 lost souls when Frisk fights Azrael. What if they lose? What if Azrael does reset the timeline, but that power is too much for him? And then we got kind of this pseudo-sequel to Undertale. And lastly, making Frisk a talking protagonist was just a desire to have them get more agency in the story and just have a stronger bond with Papyrus since he was going to be a travel companion.
Yeah.
I actually adore that. I love it so much.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like with like one of the like we still have like the phone call conversations in the original game and all that, but like actually having people like joining you on your journey and stuff is really neat. Just like being able to talk to them and all that. It reminds me of like how with Deltarune Chapter 1, it's like there's so many little interactions and stuff that people like these people are still to this day finding out.
Okay, so someone just asked why Papyrus in the Twitch chat, and basically the big reason why I went with that was because when I was kind of planning things out, I realized, so Papyrus is not a lazy person. He's very ambitious, and he's also very idealistic, and I felt that if he were the one to make a promise, he would actually take it super duper seriously, and from there, he would want to help this human regardless of, like, if they had any personal problems. He would be able to see them despite their faults and kind of lift them up. So my Frisk ended up being kind of a more troubled kid who like tries to be this kind of more idealistic, helpful kind person, but honestly has a lot of baggage, insecurities, and faults that they're not proud of. So putting their personalities together just made for a really fun dynamic in the planning stages, and I'm really happy with how it's turned out.
Yeah. Also, because Papyrus is fun to write.
Oh yeah, well of course. Papyrus was the reason why I even got Undertale in the first place. Because I was at one of my friend's house, and he was playing through the Papyrus Day, and I was like, okay, this skeleton is amazing, I need to play this game now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't really drawn in by a specific character or anything. Basically, my sister just showed like the first like 20 minutes of gameplay to me from a Let's Player, and she was just like, and I was just like, yeah, it looks cool, but she was like, no, dude, seriously, you have to play this game, and I'm just like, fine, yeah. I'll get to it. Took me till like February of the next year to finally play and beat it, but hey, I loved it. I'm still talking about it to this day, so whatever.
Hey, still, anytime is still a good time to check it out. And the nice thing is that even in early 2016, that was still early enough where the spoilers weren't quite as blatant and in your face as they are now, whereas like most people are very unlikely to get into Undertale without knowing at least a few of the big things, like the Sans battle existing. That was a big surprise when the game first came out.
Yeah, I like looking back on like Jacksepticeye's playthrough and stuff, and him just being like, oh, he's there. And just him, just saying it's completely just destroying him and stuff.
Oh yeah, his playthrough was really charming. We got another question from the YouTube chat. The Penguin Lover 26 asks if Inverted Fate is complex and the slightest difference can change the whole story, and that is very true. And one of the reasons why I feel like if a larger game project were to be made, it would have to be much more linear, like Deltarune, is because there are so many little variables in terms of the story. Like, for example, if Frisk was mean to Natstablook, that would have huge consequences because their friendship with Natstablook gets them to defend Frisk on TV to Metaton, and then that leads to Metaton having a certain disposition toward Frisk. And, like, if Frisk was mean to Blookie, that instantly means, like, Metaton's involvement in the story would be very, very different. And there are other points, too. So ultimately, because of that, it feels better to either just be in its current format or in like smaller playable projects where we can have a little bit more control of like the containment of these changes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, go ahead.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's one of the things you really have to think about. It's like Undertale is like known as like, oh, there's like so much choices and stuff in the game. There's you can play it so many different ways and stuff, but there's still like different there's still like restraints and stuff. For one, it being a small indie game, and for two, the story that Toby Fox is trying to tell can't really go that far out of a certain framework. But yeah. Skidaddly Skapoodle.
Skedaddle Skapoodle.
Skedaddle Skapoodle. Nailed it. What is your favorite roll swap that you've made in Inverted Fate?
Okay, so my favorite swap, honestly, I'm still really proud of what I did with Undyne. She ended up being like a really central part of the story for like the first, I want to say, 2/3 of it, because her actions as royal scientist basically directly contributed to Toriel going into isolation. So it wasn't Undyne's intention. B, the much more negative view towards humans, since Undyne made a certain oopsie with some tapes she shouldn't have shown to everybody. And basically, that plus her being so desperate to free monsters and not have anyone else carry that responsibility makes her a very kind of tragic antagonist where she's got some shades of like how Asgore in Undertale wanted to do all this for his people, but in Undyne's case, it's compounded by her failures during the experiments, the fact that Toriel was just so displeased with the way attitudes changed that she went away, and all this. So Undyne's having to just carry a lot of weight, all while desperately trying to do what she thinks is best for everyone, even if she personally isn't too happy about it.
Right.
All right. And then another question from Skedaddle Skapoodle is why I chose to give Frisk a backstory in the first place. And honestly, a part of it is just when I'm writing a character, it's easier for me to kind of form that character if I have an idea of where they came from, what drove them to where they started the story. So when I was forming Frisk's character, I was like, okay, so why are they on this mountain? What's their deal? And like, honestly, when I started writing them, a lot of their personality was just me kind of winging it as I went along. They just kind of formed on their own. But they sort of just became this person who, like, outwardly tries to be friendly and smart and charismatic and nice to people, but having moments where they're, like, a bit more blunt, impatient, and kind of troubled. And so I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to have a Frisk that, like, they want to be kind of like what the more ideal Frisks you see in other fan works are, but they, at the same time, they kind of internalize it as, well, they're not a great person, they're just trying to be what others would like them to be, and it just gives them more personal conflict, I guess.
Yeah, your Frisket is interesting compared to a lot of other Frisk because especially in like post-pacifist AUs, which is the stuff I'm really interested in over all the other stuff. There are some times where I'm just like how did this person get through the the entire underground? Do you know how?
I get what you're saying. But go ahead.
You know how much crap they have to go through to get through this place, and it's just
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh no, they're just like, oh no, they were just like super sweet and stuff, and I'm just like, no, there's a lot of points where they just need to grind their teeth, grit their teeth, and press on and stuff.
Yeah, like, my approach is basically, like, when you're a player playing a game and you're not directly facing these dangers, I think it's easier to separate yourself and be more understanding and patient. But, like, for Frisk, my Frisk is a 12-year-old kid who has a lot of stuff in terms of personal mistakes and guilt that they're trying to sort of repress, and they're thrown into these very dangerous situations where a lot of people want them dead, even though they personally haven't done anything to monsters for the most part. It's like, I wanted to explore like how sometimes they'd reach kind of a breaking point, how sometimes they might not say the nicest things, like especially to Undyne, who is very much their foil in many points of the stories in terms of like being a personal antagonist. Like, they sometimes get so sassy and hot-headed with Undyne because they are so frustrated with her reckless abandon and how she's not considering the way her actions are stressing people like Papyrus out. So they have a lot of personal clashes there. And while that means they're not going to be as patient and kind to her as like others might personally expect, what I felt is just like, especially for a preteen kid who's just thrown into these horrible situations, it's understandable that they might not always have that chill, and they might need time and intervention from friends to help them come out of that funk.
Yeah, I understand that. Like of course, like you said, like from an outsider's perspective, just controlling the character, you're just like, we can forgive people easier and stuff. And meanwhile, if you think about in universe and stuff, you're just like, if Frisk is just like, they've been speared, they've been blasted, they've been fireballed, they've been all sorts of, they've been electrocuted, they've gone through all sorts of stuff. So there's
Yeah, and another big part of that is that, like, especially one thing that interested me was, like, having the character experience game overs and dying and what that would do versus someone playing a game where you're not personally hurt, but for Frisk, that's something they have to live through. They have to live through being killed. So, like, the first time they die in the comic, that's a really jarring experience for them that does linger to the point where there are a couple spots where they'll like reload because they don't want to deal with something that could potentially kill them. Like the first time they meet Dogami and Doggeressa and Doggo and they see those axes, it's like, oh shoot, and insta reload before the fight even starts. That was kind of my way of communicating that, yeah, they're still not completely over that.
Yeah. Robert Tom's in the chat. Is Jerry going to be the final boss of Inverted Fate?
Okay, so there's a story behind that question. Basically, one of my friends, Tile, who's also the creator of the AU Rupture Tale, excellent read, likes to joke that Jerry is the final boss of Inverted Fate. I have no idea what even started that, but it's kind of become an in-joke within the Inverted Fate community to kind of have people say, oh, it's obvious Jerry's the real final boss. But no, Jerry is not actually the final boss. I'm so sorry to all the Jerry fans in the audience.
None of you?
No, there are no Jerry fans. They just want to fight him. That's it.
You never know.
Yeah.
So I just want to know why this is a question, but FMS Draws asked, so Dorked, are the legends of you being an actual dragon true?
Maybe it's hard, but alas, I am a squishy short person. I do not have the epic fire and wings and coolness. I'm just a nerd who makes the funny webcomics and excessively long Kingdom Hearts fan fiction and other such things.
So you too love Kingdom Hearts, I see.
Oh yeah, that was actually my first big fandom before Undertale. I got my start with writing these kinds of divergent AUs with a fan fiction series called Antipode, and it's basically taking a much simpler quote unquote swap idea of like what if Riku actually got the Keyblade instead of being a total dingus, except I decided, you know what, KH1 Riku has a lot of baggage. He's got a lot of personal problems. I'm going to keep it still being kind of a jerk at the start and kind of juxtapose that with the responsibility he's supposed to have, while Sora remains a fundamentally nice person rather than being all jealous and bitter. And Sora still ends up with Kyrie's heart and like exploring sort of how just those small changes would affect everything else. And as of the current story, it has gone down a wildly different path from the canon. And so when I went to Inverted Fate, I already kind of had a little bit of that cause and effect and experience with writing those sorts of scenarios to shape this project.
Yeah. You know, say what you want about Riku. Unlike Sasuke, the edgy asshole, it only took him like one and a half games to get over his like, no, I'm your rival, Sora. No, he actually.
I would argue, especially if you take Final Mix into account, he figures it out as soon as he gets his body stolen and is
basically
really
you've been played, kid.
So someone asked about my PFP.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
So that was drawn by Divide, aka OD, who is a very talented artist. Used to be pretty active in the Undertale fandom. I don't know if they really are these days, but they had done like a ton of Inverted Fate art back in the day, and so I just thought it was really neat. So I made that my PFP.
Yeah,
nice.
It is great. It's a great picture of the skeleton.
Yes. Alright,
yeah,
so I'm looking...
meanwhile, the skeleton is surrounded by a cute little duck looking up towards the sky and a nerdy deer boy.
I mean, ducks are adorable.
Oh, I should actually change mine to that picture that I made.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm looking in the chat too. Okay, so I'm just seeing...
By the way, again, guys, thank you all for showing up. I know you guys wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Dorked. So, while you're here,
well, except for maybe Tevin, because Tevin's always here.
Okay, so we've got
while you're here, make sure to like and subscribe. No, I'm just kidding.
I will give it a like to boost the video in the YouTube algorithm, because I know that comments and engagement actually are genuinely good for the algorithm. YouTube kind of sucks with video exposure sometimes, so I just gave it a like. Okay, looking back in the two chats. So someone just asked if I see Undyne as more of a tragic figure in Greek myth. That is a very interesting question. I can definitely see that, because Undyne definitely has the makings of someone who really does want to be the hero in the story. But the problem is that, one, she's putting way too much pressure on herself and acting like she has to be the end-all, be-all to this situation, that regardless of the repercussions on her mental health and her personal friendships and attachments, she has to get that soul. She has to free everyone, because if she doesn't do it, someone else will have to, and it might be someone who is even more broken than she is. And so she just kind of pushes herself into this mindset that, oh, it's fine, the human's obviously not really a good person, and keeps making up all these excuses, even though she's deep down she knows it's not that clear cut. But it's also easier to pretend it's that simple so that she can stick to her guns.
Yeah. Briella is like, oh yeah, I was here for the Lynx Griffin one. Yeah, that was great.
I need to
love talking to Lynx Griffin.
I need to watch some of the other episodes. I've been so busy but it's really cool that you guys are able to get so many prominent creators in this fandom on the show.
It's really cool that they agree to be on here.
It's almost like they're really nice people or something.
Whoa.
Oh gosh, there were some very, very snarky comments about certain big spoils and inverted fate. Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm not saying to delete it, I just find it funny out of context. But, okay, let's see. So, someone asked about the, neutral crisis of determination videos and what would have happened if they couldn't get through to Frisk. Honestly, I think what would have ultimately happened is, no matter what, Frisk would have been pinned down until they just freaking listened and calmed the heck down. It's just a matter of time. And since Inverted Fate Sans is a trained guard who's got more stamina than his Undertale counterpart just by virtue of, 10 years of training, you'd probably be able to hold them off for quite a while, and eventually they'd have to run out of steam anyway.
God, boy, it's almost like doing podcasts is fun, and you guys are nice.
I mean, that's true too.
Yeah. Yeah. Stupid emojis.
Everybody else was doing the regular smiley face, and mine turns into the stinking emoji.
Oh gosh,
that's fine. Jazzy Pickle asks, what is Sansa's accent in the dubs? I can't quite pinpoint it.
Okay, so story behind Sansa's accent. When we were doing the casting call for the dub many, many years ago, it was coincidentally around the time they were starting to reveal stuff about the Japanese version of Undertale. And so we found out around that time that Sansa's pronoun is Oira, or however you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I butchered Japanese. But that's usually a pronoun kind of associated with a hick or country bumpkin kind of dialect. And so when Mortal's audition kind of had that southern drawl to it, I was like, oh, actually that might be pretty neat, especially with him holding at kind of an authoritative position as the chief of Snowdin's royal guard. You could make some correlation to him almost being a sheriff of sorts, so hey, why not?
Yeah.
And Mortal's performance was just great.
B-Real, who is your favorite thought of Undertale NPC? Well, I always liked the what is a star NPC, and my favorite non super important monster and stuff is yeah, is Washua. Love the little adorable turtle cleaner.
Yes, Washua is good. Gosh, there's so many really charming NPCs and random encounters in Undertale. I'm trying to think of the ones that really stick out to me. Shout out to Hive's Temmie, because that Temmie is just so cute. Really thought that some of the quirkier NPCs like Crutch the Old Elder Puzzler is a fun one that doesn't get a lot of love in fan art and stuff. I think there were some really interesting NPCs in the hotel, like the ficus guy, and the little kind of pointy triangular NPC by the hotel door. When you find out after you kill Metaton that a lot of the hotel employees were hired because Metaton took sympathy on them having less desirable shapes and thus not being seen as appealing for certain job positions. I just thought that was a nice touch of characterization and very sympathetic for those NPCs.
Shout out to that janitor whose job is never done.
That poor janitor. Probably doesn't help that the janitor's literally a slime monster, so
He's just
it's like being a janitor while you have muddy shoes.
like that janitor from Monsters Inc., you know, the one who finishes mopping up, moves away, and then he has a trail of slime to clean up.
Not gonna lie, that's probably where Toby Fox got at least some of the inspiration for that character from.
Okay, so we got a question from Goner Boy about favorite area or part of the story. And that's a really good question because I would say the ones that I would personally have the fondest memories of are either like the waterfall arc, because that was like a really important arc for like the setting and the kind of character arcs for Frisk and Papyrus, but also Hotland and the core. So like toss up between those two. I still enjoy Snowdin and the Ruins, but I feel like Inverted Fate really started hitting its stride sort of late Snowdin and onward.
I'm just like I said, I haven't read / watched much of Inverted Fate, sadly, yet. It is really good from the little bits I have seen, but I'm just like, there's like a freaking Phoenix Wright court case later, and I'm just like, oh, that's gonna be interesting.
Oh, we had so much fun with that. So the funny thing is, the whole primetime turnabout part of the story, it was planned like super early in the comic, and it all started when I was working on the scene where Snowdrake, Chilldrake, and Icecap, they're kind of recurring NPCs, and they freak out because of an encounter with Frisk and Papyrus at some misunderstandings involving friendliness pellets, and they run straight to Hotland to kind of spread the word. And there were some jokes in a chat, I think it was the Story Shift Discord server, about, well, what if they take Frisk to court? And I was like, I still haven't finalized what I want to do with Metaton's TV shows, so I could probably make one an Ace Attorney parody. And then it turned to be an hour and a half worth of fully dubbed video shenanigans, and while some things I might want to remaster eventually, I think for the time and for just being a fan project with not really a ton of budget behind it, we basically did a pretty solid job.
Budget? What budget?
Yeah, it was pretty much just working on it in our free time. I had been working on a lot of the character sprites for many, many months, and wrote a whole script for like a fully playable version, because at one point I was approached by Minoshi to do a fully playable version that ultimately didn't super pan out, but then this might be revisited at a later date because there's someone else kind of interested in programming and in picking off where Minoshi left off. No promises on when that'll happen, but overall, it was a lot of work, and the nice thing is that we were still able to salvage like the visuals and voice acting and stuff and just make the video that was originally planned.
40, Jesus Christ, we're just getting more and more. Yeah, I think this is the most viewers we've ever had. Yeah, we got 18 viewers on Twitch and 40 viewers on YouTube. That is incredible. You guys are all incredible. Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for all the questions. I'm still kind of reading through and trying to address the ones that stick out, so just hang tight.
And remember, we still have just like the base level questions that me and Cupcake came up with. See, Cupcake, I saw that you changed your profile picture to your Duck Soda and stuff.
Duck Soda.
Here's an interesting question. Someone asked if there's been any crossovers with other Undertale AUs, and like in terms of ones I've like been directly involved in, there was a Story Shift crossover I was doing with Voltra, who made the original Story Shift and is still the AU owner. We started it out, and we got a couple chapters worth of writing in, but then the rebooting happened, and so eventually we'd like to do another Inverted Fate Story Shift crossover, but we're kind of waiting for Story Shift's reboot to progress further. And beyond that, Inverted Fates had some cameos in other projects, like FMS has included cameos of Inverted Fate characters in like some of the Poppy Ask blog and videos. It was part of, say, FMS's AU Crossfire concept, which was kind of like a Smash Brothers plus Undertale AU idea. It's cameoed in a few other things, like in Sonic Adventure Grounded, which is a Sonic and Undertale AU. But in terms of like big crossover projects, like all the really fancy animations and stuff you see on YouTube or other large comics, not a ton. I'm definitely down if people want to have like cameos of Inverted Fate in, say, their own projects. They can always just talk to me and we could work something out. My main thing when it comes to my characters appearing in other stuff is it's nice when they try to be as faithful to the characters as possible.
Yeah. It's just like it's just like with crossovers and stuff. It's like we all love to see crossovers of different stuff. Even if it is like even if it is just even if it is just like silly like AUs of a indie video game and stuff. Also, guys,
yes,
you should totally not spam Jackie from Underverse to see if you can get inverted. If you can get
no.
I think actually I think because a while ago there were these extras and auditions for that. I think just with Underverse being as complex as it is, having more recent AUs appear in a larger capacity just isn't likely, just because animation takes a ton of work, and I imagine Underverse's plot has been kind of locked for at least a few years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We even like smaller creators like me and stuff, like I dream about like, oh, one day someone will make someone will like include my characters in in like a AU or something, but I'm just like, nah, that's not gonna happen. Dr. Mecha, the beach episode, yeah. Yeah, that's when you guys will show up. They'll just completely stop the plot and be like, guys, let's have a beach episode.
Oh yeah. If you two have any questions you want to give me while I'm reading through the chat, go ahead. Like, I get there's a lot of chat questions, but
yeah. Oh, hold on. Brendan Peters, year 10. Who? Where did we get the background? I made it. I made the background.
Yes, because Cupcake is good artist. She's very good.
The power of art.
And by the way, if you want to go check out more of Cupcake's art, you can go check the description to go to her DeviantArt or her Tumblr, and also her commissions are now open.
Support artists. Dramatic shake.
That can be Rage Pasta Guy, SFM. What are you thinking about?
Oh, so here's a really interesting question. Someone's asking what my favorite Undertale AUs are that are not well known. Oh, I can think of plenty. Some are known, but not like known for the actual AU. And like biggest examples of that would be Undertoad, which is the Undertale Mario crossover AU. It's an AU that like know of, but the vast majority have not actually read the comic for it or seen the official videos. And Undertoad really at its heart is a love letter to the Mario RPGs and other works of Mario media, just kind of blended together with Undertale. And it's really cool and creative, so it makes me sad that like the source material for it doesn't get as much attention as like just the idea of Mario as Sans.
It's a me, a Sans.
And another example of some more underrated AUs, Scramble Saga by Chaos Fantasy and Eclair is an excellent sprite comic roll swap AU that kind of has a bit more somber air to it. Some of its placements are really cool. Like they got Kara in the ruins, but very different approach from the Caretaker AU that kind of makes them a bit more empathetic and tragic, kind of drawing from a lighter side of like the Kara interpretations while still having the kind of more guarded side of their character. They've got Gaster as the scientist, but he's kind of located more in Waterfall, and there's just a lot of really cool concepts that at the time especially were really unique for a sprite comic AU. And another good example of one is Ruptured Tale, which I mentioned before. It's kind of like a divergence from What If the Genocide Run was failure at Undying the Undying, and then sometime later a new human falls into the underground, and how the underground would react to having a human after so many monsters were killed, but also still keeping that kind of wacky Undertale vibe. And this human is a talking protagonist, and he's kind of a troubled teen, so there's some really fun interactions in that one, and it uses some cut characters like Robot 98 and Doge.
Doge.
Interesting. By the way, hey Southbus, nice to see you in the chat. Also, Lucas is here. I don't know who Lucas is, but apparently the chat's treating them like a big deal.
Oh, Lucas is the creator of Undertoad.
Ah, okay.
Ah.
Hey Lucas,
Yes.
glad to have you here.
Oh yeah, someone else just mentioned Name the Fallen. That's a really cool sprite comic AU, kind of the concept of some wacky meta shenanigans go on, and suddenly Papyrus is kind of forced into the spot of Frisk in the story, but he's still literally Papyrus. He doesn't know what's going on, and like all the other characters are treating him as if he's the human Papyrus is mysteriously missing from the story, and it goes through multiple routes and is a really fun exploration of Papyrus's character, put through some rather harsh situations at times, and also great exploration of his friendship with Flowey.
Yeah. For me, some nice underrated AUs are those daydreamers which we had on earlier. I'll Try to Be Good, which is a really interesting like ass blog about.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, with that involves it involves Flowey and a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, also there's clever catchphrases. Ghost Switch AU swap. I honestly can't remember at this point. Which basically it's like, hey, what if like Asriel was the ghost and Kara was the flower?
Yeah, I've seen that one in passing. I really got to sit down and read it sometime, because the concept of just a much smaller scale swap is one I can personally really appreciate, because it's sometimes just a matter of... Oh, go ahead.
I love it because I get to see more. I get to see a lot of Ghost because Asriel is my favorite character. So I'm just like, yay, workout.
This is super valid. It's always nice to see a fan work where one of your faves gets a lot of spotlight. Like for me, it's kind of tricky in that Papyrus is certainly a popular character who shows up in a lot of fan works, but I feel like a lot of the time when he is featured, he's usually not given a lot of agency. Like, usually it's just how Papyrus relates to Sans, or Papyrus being killed to create drama for Sans, and there aren't like a ton of works that I can think of where Papyrus is really given a ton of spotlight as just being the best Papyrus he can be.
Yeah.
Right.
Say what you want about Glitch Tail. That Papyrus and that is pretty freaking rad.
True.
Oh yeah. Oh hey, Bresh, the creator of Chocoblook, is here, and Chocoblook is also really rad. I need to catch up on it. It's really cool.
How many of you guys are gonna get in here?
I have the power to summon people, I guess. I need to watch Royal Papyrus. I've been meaning to, but I've just been so busy juggling like my Patreon and work on Inverted Fate and other things. So there's been a long list of things I want to get to, but it's kind of like, oh no, I'm an adult with a job, but I also have my projects and I also have my Patreon, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Barrel, One by One, that is a fic that I really need to read. But also the Golden Quiche. We actually had a podcast with Softpuss and Tim, her editor, who actually read the Golden Quiche. So yeah, and I think she might still be in the chat. I don't know.
Right.
I talk to Softpuss sometimes, and I've been meaning to check out the fics. It's just, again, long list of things to consume.
Right, exactly.
Stupid fandom with so much content that's great.
Gosh darn it.
So someone just asked me about Flowey in Inverted Fate, and so the thing with Flowey in Inverted Fate was that I wanted to take a slightly different approach to how he handles Frisk, because since it does diverge from the Undertale timeline, I think he'd realize once Frisk's memory situation is made clear that they don't fully remember him, that, you know, he could probably get a lot more mileage out of manipulating Frisk and pretending to be their friend than trying to attack them at the onset, especially because he's not entirely sure what the whole deal with the new timeline is. So that kind of led to this very sugar-coated but toxic friendship they kind of have going on, where Flowey is absolutely nudging Frisk and Pap along for his own gain, but at the same time, with Papyrus being such a kind and compassionate person, he doesn't fully realize what's going on. Frisk is so desperate for validation and friendship that they don't fully realize what's going on, and Flowey is just really eager to, one, see what the heck is up with this timeline, and B, use the knowledge that, hey, I made a timeline on accident. What happens if I do something more deliberate?
Yeah. Sounds first put us. I feel happy that Golden Quiche is mentioned. Haha. Yeah, people, go check out the Golden Quiche. May fill up Softpuss's AO3 stuff. just to make her both happy but also annoyed that she's getting so many email notifications.
Okay, so I'm still trying to read through. There's been a lot of questions, but while I'm looking, like I said, if you guys have more questions, go ahead. I feel bad that you guys haven't had a lot of time to ask more questions.
Hey, no, it's fine. We're having a really good conversation and stuff.
Yeah.
Why did you choose Sprite Comics as the medium for this AU?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. So originally I had considered doing like a fully drawn comic for Inverted Fate, and I even had some like really early concepts for that. But as I worked on it, I started to realize that just the amount of time that it takes to generate even a single page of a comic, if I combine that with the scope I had for the story, it would just not be a very sustainable project for me. So I decided, after seeing Story Shift and how effectively it told its story through Sprite Comic, I was like, this is an interesting concept. What if I try to iterate upon this and kind of develop this whole Sprite Comic format with a bit more like drastic changes to the maps, like more custom areas, have a talking protagonist, play a bit more with the story structure, and then I was like, I still want to keep some of the drawn art. So I decided I would kind of compromise by having a lot of it told through sprites, but then I'd also have occasional cutscenes that have more drawn style pixel graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Flowey be like, trade offer, you receive torment, trauma, and trust issues for the rest of your life. I receive amusement.
I mean, that's about right.
Flipping sadistic weed.
Yeah,
You're the goat boy that's inside you. He doesn't deserve this. You know, I misjudged him without any empathy or anything, right? Shut up, you.
Azrael, who are you? I'm you, but with a body count.
I'm you, but I'm you, but a jerk.
Gosh. Yeah, I really enjoy Flowey, and writing him has been a lot of fun because, on one hand, I think the fact that he's been through the original timelines underground enough times to, like, basically know everyone better than they know themselves puts him in a really interesting position in a timeline where he doesn't have all the answers, because even if he doesn't know everything, he still knows a lot of these people and is able to use that to kind of manipulate the situation to his advantage at certain points. And it's been fun kind of juxtaposing what he knows and expects with some of the curveballs that the story brings, and also just the kind of frustrating complications of what's going on with Kara, because Inverted Fate operates on the narrator Kara theory, but also Kara remembers the original timeline, whereas Frisk only has like a hazy deja vu type recollection. So Kara's kind of still grappling with, oh shoot, oh what, this flower was Azrael? What? No.
No, my brother. my Kuko bro, no.
Yeah, it's
Tony Boy Flowey experience to walk through. Yeah, that's right. The spoiler son of a bitch. He's one of those people that, like, before I play the game, I'm gonna watch it all the way through to see if it's worth it.
Oh yeah. So I think a few people asked about a couple other projects like Swap Out and Fallen Flowers. I haven't read Fallen Flowers, but I have seen pages from it in passing, and the art is really gorgeous. And I read parts of Swap Out, and it looked really neat in terms of the concept. I need to catch up on it because I haven't checked on it in a while. Like, in terms of the projects that I've been actively keeping up with, gosh, there's some that I want to get back to, but, like, I've been following Ask Fallen Royalty because it's been brought up in my server a whole bunch, so it's been really easy to just keep tabs on that because people are posting as it updates in the Undertale AU discussion channel. I'm pretty much caught up on Undertoad. I'm actively following that. I need to catch up on Ruptured Tale. I'm like 1 or 2 chapters behind on that. Story Shift, since I'm on the team, I'm mostly caught up. Gotta check the dev stuff. But on that note, someone had earlier asked about Story Shift and what the deal is with Preboot and Reboot. Long story short, Story Shift was originally a sprite comic AU. Very early days of the fandom, one of the first to do a role swap without swapping personalities, no species swapping. So, like, even though Metaton's in the Kara role, he is still a ghost monster, or was before he died. Stuff like that.
I like how it's like, they were a ghost monster before they died. Wait.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. But, like, Story Shift was a pretty important fan work in that it popularized sprite comics and introduced a lot of the foundation that other projects iterated upon. And it got really far before Voltra decided that it just didn't live up to the ideas that she had originally in mind for its climax. And, like, basically early on it was a lot simpler in scope because there weren't as many tools available. She had to make all her sprite comic maps by stringing screen caps together and then just editing out the text boxes and stuff and just working that way, whereas now we have tile set editors. And so she got all the way up to the Sans fight, and he's in the Asgore role, before she decided to reboot it. And over time, it just became that a sprite comic reboot would be too much work, so she simplified it, and now it's kind of a written script style story with some visual materials and music accompanying it. But the story is a lot more fleshed out now.
Yeah. Over the Void isn't really good. AU made by Absolute Dream. Still calling them out though, because many people who watch my show beforehand, which I know many of you haven't. Please stay. I swear the show's still good without people that you know on it. But yeah, I requested Absolute Dream. I emailed him and was like, hey, it'd be really nice. You're a great artist. I really love your work. Could you please come on to our little podcast and stuff? Maybe give us an interview, help us out a little bit with your massive following and stuff. And they didn't even respond to me. The thing is, they are the only person ever not to respond to me. Everyone else, even if they couldn't make it, was just like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. They at least did that, but Absolute Dream has it. So yeah, that's right, Absolute Dream. I'm still calling you out. I'm still mad about it. Like a year or so later.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it could partially be that Absolute Dream is probably really, really busy, because I don't know in terms of like their professional life, but I know a lot of commission art, and I saw on the Absolute Dream blog, the Over the Void blog, it's going on hiatus for a while, and that's totally fair, because burnout happens. Like, it hasn't entirely happened to me with Inverted Fate, but I got hit with the burnout stick super hard with Antipode for a very long time, coincidentally around the time I started working on Inverted Fate. So having another project to just focus in on for a while was a nice break so that I could come back to Antipode. And now that Inverted Fate's back, poor Antipode's once again playing second fiddle, but I do have motivation for that. It's just kind of like Inverted Fate's the more popular project right now, so it's the one that I tend to prioritize because it's the one that just I have the most audience engagement with, and I know for a fact that people are really excited. But I love all my Antipode fans, and I know that Inverted Fates introduced more people to my Kingdom Hearts work, and I'm super grateful for the support it's received.
Got Pasta Zone Gondorboy in the chat. Yeah. I'm also a big fan of Kingdom Hearts. Like, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix is like just up there as like one of my favorite games just ever. I love that game to death.
Fun fact about Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, though. I actually have a PS2 copy of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix Plus, because back in the day, we didn't know if Rechain of Memories was going to get localized, and I was so desperate to play it that I soft-modded my PS2 and ordered a Japanese import of Final Mix for KH2 just so I could have a chance to play Rechain of Memories, and I printed out the entire GBA script from GameFAQs at a library and had this like 90-something page stack of paper so that I could have the dialogue as I played this Japanese game, and
wow.
It was a ride.
Wow. Yeah.
It was.
I mean, like, it's crazy that it's like now, like, Kingdom Hearts used to be like, it was like, oh, this one game's on this one console, and this other game on this other console. Now it's just like, oh, you can just buy basically the whole series in like one big pack on the PS4 and stuff.
Yeah, my one nitpick with that though is that Square remake Days. The Days movie does not do the story of 358-2 justice. They missed out on so many great character moments, like Roxas. That's a stick. Like, the gameplay of Days can be sluggish and tedious, but I feel like instead of just gutting all that, it would just be better to revisit it and just make it more fun to play.
Rainy in the chat as Dorked, what do you think about Dogs of Future Past?
Oh yeah, Yeah, Dogs of Future Past was a really interesting read. I did follow it back when it was still going on. I need to get to Paper Trail because Lynx Griffin's work is excellent. I just haven't had the time to catch up on all these really cool projects. But yeah, I enjoyed Dogs of Future Past. The concept of Frisk, Flowey, and Greatest Dog sharing a single body and trying to fix all these problems and bring Gaster back brought some really funny shenanigans. I think a highlight for me was definitely Frisk flirting in the dog body.
Yeah, Dogs of Future Past is like it's one of the AUs that inspired like my work and stuff, and Dogs of Future Past is just so amazing. It is so amazing. It is just along with Paper Trail. It's just like it's one of those things where I feel this energy that a lot of Undertale AUs like try to have that's just like capture the same like spirit and stuff of Undertale and stuff. There's just that sort of like energy and stuff that it has that I'm just like this could have just been made by Toby Fox in itself. And I've told that to Lynx Griffin and she's just like, oh really, thanks.
I gotta say, though, it's really cool that Lynx Griffin still finds time to work on fan projects like Paper Trail and Dog's Future Past, because from what I understand, Lynx actually does work in the industry in terms of animation as well as doing an original webcomic, so like that is a lot of stuff.
Well, that original webcomic actually ended.
They recently finished it.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Well, that's really awesome.
I read through it. It's good.
I have a funny Lynx Griffin story, and that is that I remember, like, before all of these fan works and stuff, Lynx was a Kingdom Hearts role player on, like, LiveJournal and Dreamwidth, and I remember I remember seeing them in passing in, like, some Kingdom Hearts roleplay communities, so it was like, oh, hey, I recognize that person.
Little did you know that one day they'd be known for drawing one of the most popular fan comics for Undertale.
Oh yeah, like it's really cool to see like, oh hey, I remember that person from high school, except high school in this case was a open Kingdom Hearts roleplay community on LiveJournal/Dreamwidth.
Yeah. You know the Slankite nailed it. What's your opinion on Underverse and Glitch Tale respectively? Me personally, I've only seen the first season of Underverse, but it's really good. I haven't watched X Tale or the first episode of season 2 yet. Yes, I know. Let me have it. But yeah. And Glitch Tale, I like Glitch Tale a lot, but there are some things in it that I'm just like, and to me, still like season 2, episode 4, Made of Love, is love and stuff is still the high point of the show. And it hasn't really surpassed it. Like the latest episode, the latest episode that just came out like late last year and stuff. That was also pretty damn amazing. But yeah, I understand like the controversy around Camilla not being the nicest. Not being like the nicest person apparently, but yeah, I still enjoy it. It's just but it's just not and it's
it's kind of like you can disagree with like a way a content creator behaves on platforms but still like consume the work. Like separating the art from the artist is a really complicated, nuanced discussion, and like there's people have different comfort zones. But like for me personally, I definitely can appreciate the work that goes into both Glitch Tale and Underverse. I would say my biggest thing with Glitch Tale is just I'm not happy with how it handled Alphys. Like I'm someone who like gets pretty frustrated when Alphys gets did in favor of Gaster. So for me personally, having it so Alphys' one speaking role is the same episode she gets killed off in, it just really soured me on a personal level, and it's just, again, I can appreciate the production values, and I'm glad that people are able to enjoy the series and have fun with it. It's just a personal taste thing for me. But I definitely think Underverse of the two, I would say I enjoyed Underverse a bit more. Haven't seen a ton of X-Tale, but what I have seen, I can appreciate that it gives the spotlight to more minor Undertale characters, like Alphys actually having a bit more of a significant part to play.
Also, Muffet's design, like, yes.
Yeah. Also, we have to X-Tale. We have to enjoy it because because they literally look like Kingdom Hearts designs.
Actually, that is very true. They totally have that Tetsuya Nomura Square Enix vibe to the character designs.
Zippers everywhere.
Yeah, I'm kind of someone who like appreciates a lot of the characters who don't get as much love in fan work. So like Alphys is a big one where I really wish that people would stop sleeping on her, because there's so much you can do with her. Like, so many people are quick to attribute parts of the DT experiments to Gaster instead, or like they'll have Sans be the one who's like super aware of alternate universes. And while I can see where that comes from with his timeline knowledge, at the same time, we have Metaton in the quiz show portion of Undertale saying, oh yeah, she's speculating about alternate universes. So having a fan work where Alphys like makes contact with another reality would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, like, Alphys is one of those characters that does deserve more credit. And with my, and to go back to my thing with, my sweet precious Goat Boy Azrael, a lot of time I feel like he gets kind of shafted sometimes, because a lot, like, even when like all they use, it's where like Car and Frisk and Azrael are like, oh, they're like living on the surface and stuff. A lot of time Azrael gets fucking shafted, and I just feel like, guys, he's like, they, if you think about it, they've done like a whole lot of stuff, but they're just you're just freaking third wheeling him over here, and
that's actually really interesting to me, because in a lot of the fan works I've seen in passing, they tend to focus a lot more on Azrael and either villainize Kara or like have this whole thing about Kara being killed for real while Azrael sticks around. And like, I'm not trying to shame any specific fan works that do these here, but it's just, I've kind of noticed, just at least when I was actively seeing fan works like that, Azrael got a lot more spotlight than Kara did. Maybe it's shifted since then. I know Ask Fallen Royalty does a really good job of presenting a saved Azrael who's still got like a lot of the complex trauma and baggage that you would expect from spending time as a soulless flower. And then Growth Spurt also explores some of that.
Oh yeah, Growth Spurt is fantastic. Just Grossford is one of my favorite AUs. Love it to bits. Has such a unique art style. Has wonderful writing, and the Azrael in it is great. Also, it's hilarious.
Like, the angles in the art style is something that like I would like to achieve at some point, but like I can't. Just the angles are.
Angles to be too angly.
Yeah, Lucas.
Angly.
Lucas does make an interesting point that like Alphys is played up as a lot more comedic at points in Undertale's story, as well as her competence being downplayed. So I can see that. Whereas Sans has the iconic cool battle that kind of catches people's eye. So like in terms of focus characters, he would be more eye catching. For me though, I think what makes me really want to see more Alphys focused works is just, I think the fact that she was even able to make things like Metaton, or a phone that turns into a jetpack, or even try the determination experiments, like she's clearly got skills. And I think putting her in a more competent scientific role while still keeping a lot of her personal baggage and stuff would be really interesting. Like, for instance, if Alphys made contact with another reality while she was still dealing with her guilt from the experiments, would she kind of try and slip into a role and go all escapist and hide her mistakes and try and be all expert mode and just kind of use it as an opportunity to kind of project and seem cooler than she thinks she is? I think Alphys is plenty cool, but, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of Alpha's content, like one of the first fan battles I actually watched was like the Alphys Neo thing, where it was like a fan animation of Alphys, like if she like had a genocide route fight, and I don't know if you've seen it, it's really good.
Oh yeah, I remember when that first released, actually, because I remember seeing work in progress teasers on one of the Undertale Reddit. So yeah, I definitely remember Alphys Neo. I never got around to playing it, but I have seen a playthrough. And you know, it is sad how few fan battles there are surrounding her, because like the only other one that immediately comes to mind, at least to me, is the one we did for Inverted Fate, which, don't get me wrong, I'm really proud of the work we did in adapting that part of the comic. Philip did a great job with the visual presentation for that one, with some really cool background effects, and I think it was great to have her fight include Papyrus as a party member and all that. And that fight has like 21 different endings.
Jesus.
Yeah, 21 different endings. A lot of them you can only get by playing it a couple times in a row. I did some videos on my channel that kind of show off the different endings. But other than that, I don't think I've seen a ton of like attempts at Alphys fan battles, other than like maybe some Underswap stuff that was mostly just based on the Undyne fight from Undertale. Maybe there's more that I just haven't heard of, though.
Take me back to the 2016 Undertale fan base. Are you sure?
I'm gonna say, yeah, 21 different endings. There's a reason why we have to have so many different endings for that Alphys fight, but that would be spoilers for something. But yeah, there's two of the fights in particular I had to write so much script for to account for certain actions and replays and stuff. Asgore's fight has like 13 or 14 different endings, and then I think most of the other ones have a smaller number of endings, but some more than others. Like Metaton's fight only has 2. The Mad Mew Mew fight has 2 main endings and then a no-hit secret. Toriel fight has 1 ending, but a couple ways to get to it with some slightly different dialogue, as well as a no-hit secret. It depends on the fight and certain aspects of it when we make the playable adaptations.
Yeah. Just like Azrael gets portrayed as a super big crybaby sometimes in the fandom. Yeah, he sometimes does, and I'm just like, sometimes does and stuff. But yeah, what I was oh wow, I waited a whole hour and 20 minutes to finally say this. But in my story, hang on, I'm actually being interrupted. I'll be right back.
Mark it off on your bingo charts, my dudes.
Yes, Lynx, I'm talking about that. I was one of those people in the Kingdom Hearts dressing room community way back when I was a dumb high school student. So that was quite a while ago. Also,
Yep.
how get named after Alphys, that is immediately awesome. Yeah, the thing with the Undertale fandom, like, I've been here since, gosh, I want to say October 2015. Like, I started planning and developing Inverted Fate not long after I played the game, and I saw, like, the really early Underswap stuff in passing. I was like, there's some really nice art, but I feel like role swapping should have more story angles taken, and, like, Inverted Fate definitely was not intended to be a version of Underswap, because, while I did kind of get the idea from, you know what, Mad Scientist Undyne has so much potential, I want to do something with this. it was always going to have a smaller quantity of character swaps and be much more story focused rather than kind of the loose aesthetic concepts. Like, don't get me wrong, Underswap's original art and designs are very well done. I'm not really into personality swapping, but I can see why other people resonate with it because at the end of the day, some people just want cute, simple concepts that they can vibe with and draw art of.
Uh, uh, so, for one I'm back into, Lynx Griffin is in the chat.
Yes, Lynx Griffin is in the chat.
Yes. Alex Griffin. Found out you were a Kingdom Hearts role player back in the day. That's
Wow,
neat.
I'm over here like, I still occasionally roleplay on Dreamwidth, which is basically where the LJ roleplay community moved to. I actually saw someone roleplaying Dogs of Future Past Frisk Flowey Dog once on one of the communities there, and I was like, I wonder if Lynx knows about that or if that's actually Lynx controlling that account.
yeah. Lynx secretly is able to somehow both roleplay, be a storyboard artist, take care of the little lizard Alphys, and manage a Discord server and work on Paper Trail and stuff. She don't you know she just says everything. She could just do everything.
Well, it's funny. It's funny because I have actually roleplayed and rooted Fate Papyrus on Dreamwidth a couple of times, just for funsies. And sometimes I whip out accounts for my Antipode characters too. It's definitely something I do more as a side thing because my projects take up a ton of my time. But it's fun to do on occasion.
Yeah, but what I was saying before I was interrupted by my mom basically telling me like, hey, in like 20 minutes there's gonna be I'm inviting you downstairs for a snack and stuff, and I'm just like, oh, thank you, Mom. Yeah, I'm in college right now, and I finished the last of my classes yesterday. Still gotta take my exams, but they're online this year because of the virus and stuff. So yeah, I'm back home at my parents' place now. So yeah, it's really nice, but that also means I have more chances to get interrupted. But with my AU, for those who don't know, I am a fanfic writer because I cannot draw for crap or do any of that. So yeah, I am just a writer. And yes, please pat me. Much more talented artist.
Gosh, I definitely.
But yeah.
Working on art stuff myself.
Yeah, I have an AO3. I have my own stories and stuff, which you can go check out if you go to the description. Totally not saying that because there's so many of you here. So confused. But yeah,
don't be weird.
Kingdom Hearts fan, give me a Dojo to read Antipode so I can filter out the filth that is lack on Shin's physical issues takeover of my freaking reviews page. TLDR for the people who have no idea what's going on. This crazy guy who has a myriad of problems and has been cyber stalking people for a long time clung to my fanfic and spammed my reviews page on fanfic.net. Thankfully not my AO3 cross post, and it was just like, dude filled up 2 whole pages of the reviews page. It was nuts.
Wow.
But yeah, in terms of my fix are, if you're interested in like Azrael AUs and stuff, got a couple bits of that, and also I have. And also, my stuff tends to be more on the traditional side, post-pacifist, post-pacifist stuff like that, and also some other and some other stuff. There is shipping and stuff in my work, so if you're not really into that lovey-dovey stuff, you might not want to. You might not want to go into that, but but it is one of those things where it's not where the romance and stuff isn't the only thing. There's a whole other plot. There it isn't just about characters like making kissy faces at each other the whole time. But yeah,
Pasta,
Doctor.
am I allowed to plug things of my own too or not?
You guys are the hosts. Go for it.
Yeah. We can plug things whatever you can plug whatever you want as long as you're not annoying about it.
I like to ask first. So if you like fan fiction, there's one that I'm working on. Well, there's one that I have 2 chapters out right now, working on the 3rd chapter of before the events that take place in Undertale. And it's dealing with Asgore and Toriel dating, basically. Like many years ago, and it's kind of got a little bit of a forbidden love type of thing going on. So, and then there's another one that I'm working on right now. Haven't released anything of it yet. Will soon. Of basically, Brisk is determined to save Azrael, but realizes they can't. But thinks maybe there's someone else who can. Wink, 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 wonk. Perhaps a certain spirit who has been traveling with them. Wink, wink, wonk.
Interesting.
So,
I guess if we're plugging fixing stuff, I already mentioned Antipode, which is my big, ridiculously long now series that has Riku as the protagonist with all his flaws and having to grow from that. And then it's kind of derailed like crazy. It has lots of Disney references, characters from stuff like Gargoyles and Treasure Planet appear, characters from Bravely Default as well for the Square Enix fans. And then I've got a Ventus-centered fic where at the end of Birth by Sleep, Ven accidentally takes control of Child Sora's body and has to deal with the consequences of that.
Ooh.
Yeah, that one is eventually going to have a sequel, and then of course there's my Undertale stuff, which is just Inverted Fate. I've got some interesting questions here too. Someone just asked, Pancakes asked, did the Determinator change design-wise or whatever? So the funny thing with the Determinator is like the concept of Undyne having a mech has been pretty much locked since day one, but the actual design I struggled with for a very long time. Like at one point I considered it being kind of more like an Eggman mecha where like she can be seen piloting it and stuff. But then eventually I was like, you know what? That doesn't look cool enough. And then I just made it a giant robot Undyne basically with like with wings and stuff. And I think the final design came out really cool. At one point, it was going to have a sword for an arm, and I was really attached to that idea until I realized, like, 1, Metaton Spiral already has the sword motif going on. 2, it already has big freaking claws, which can serve a similar purpose. So I simplified and also made the design a little bit more symmetrical so that I wouldn't have to, like, make drastically different arm parts on each side and complicate the flow of battle. Having claw slashes as an attack was a little bit simpler than having one hand that can grab and then another that's big sword. But overall, the finalized design was locked for a while because we were on hiatus for good 2 years since production started on the Undyne fight. So, yeah, not too many changes.
Right.
Wander over you.
So yeah, I'm actually going to ask a question from the official list that we got. You started out, I assume, just by working by yourself, but you've grown into a team of people since then. What's it like working with a team such as this, and how was it formed? Was it just a whole bunch of people being like, "Hey, your story's cool. Can I do something for it?" Or is it like
basically, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, or was it like, or did you like go to like some of your like artistic friends and be like, "Hey, I know you like my story, so can you do a thing for me?
Okay, so like ultimately what happened was, like you said, I did start Inverted Fate pretty much by myself. I was just kind of learning and coming up with the way I produced the comic as I went along. Eventually, I started interacting with Undertale Discord communities and found people who liked what I was doing and were fans, and they offered to help. So like there was some collaboration there. I think some of the biggest early collaborators were people like Mildred, who did some of the animated GIFs in the waterfall section of the story. And then some early music composers who contributed were like Lucas Pukas, and Jimmy the bassist did some cool stuff. And we've had other music contributors over the years. Well, I've also been kind of working on a lot of the soundtrack too. Ultimately, it's kind of just like if people want to help with the project and they express an interest, I talk to them and like we touch base, and I'm like, oh, hey, cool. I can give some stuff to do. And I try to be flexible. And if someone can't work on a thing in time, I can pick up the slack. Like, that's one thing that's nice about being able to do multiple aspects of the project, is that I can still carry a lot of the weight so that others don't have to stress themselves. Because a lot of the people who do help, like FMS, for example, he does a lot of cool stuff like the website borders. He's contributed some things for the tile sets and a couple of character poses and angles. But then he's got his Poppy blog and other tasks in other projects. So, like, I don't want to monopolize his time. And then Philip is another case of like, he just kind of came to me one day. I was like, I want to make a fan battle. And then eventually, as we worked together, he became an official part of the Inverted Fate development team. Then our voice actors, we started the Fire Globe project because Audio Spawn, aka Sudsy, was doing some fan dubs of Inverted Fate, and we really enjoyed his work. And so Skull Appender was like, hey, what if we like make an actual formal dub? Did an audition, recruited some really talented people like Wintermelon and Upgraded Moon, who was also in some Man on the Internet productions, Cello, who's done a ton of Undertale dub content and was part of Lemon Light Productions. We've got some really awesome people, and they came through our audition process. And then Electric Sparks was another person who was like big fan of the project, wanted to help work on it. So really it was just a case of people just sort of gravitating towards Inverted Fate and just making friends in the community. And from there, like, people would maybe do one-off contributions to the project while others would stay on board and actively contribute to the dev process. And so that's just kind of how it got to be where it is.
That's awesome. Also, just people in the chat, people in the chat being like, people in the chat like, if talking about Kingdom Hearts stuff, and it's like, with like, with Kingdom Hearts 3, still have yet to play it, but I am getting a PS5 for my birthday. So which is backwards compatible with the PS4, so I'm gonna be playing Kingdom Hearts 3 pretty soon. So
meanwhile, my newest consoles are 3DS and PS3. Haha.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel that. Like, it's just like I'm just like the Tangle World and stuff was like, it was pretty good there, but after you watch the Tangled series, you're just like, why couldn't they have gone to this one?
Okay, so funny story that you mentioned that. I love the Tangled series, and I really, whenever I get around to integrating more Tangled stuff into Antipode, I really want to have characters like Lance and Cassandra appear, because I feel like they just really flesh out the setting of Tangled more and are just really fun to work with.
Yes.
Like, I will totally do nods and homages to stuff that wasn't in the Kingdom Hearts games, but was in, like, spin-off materials and such. I do a lot of really things Disney would probably not be as comfortable with in terms of crossing over their properties. Like, for example, I had Edna Mode design Keyblade armor as well as super suits.
Yes.
The idea was basically, well, originally Terraven and Aqua were going to have capes on their Keyblade armor, but due to console restrictions, they didn't. So I'm like, what if she was the one who designed their Keyblade armor, and that's why they don't have capes?
No capes.
No capes. I wish my brother
so-
was here. He does like a perfect Edna Mode impression.
I love to kind of integrate these kind of smaller ideas of like how much a world is integrated into the greater Kingdom Hearts setting, into the story, and kind of give characters certain awareness and involvement. Like I have Mary Poppins be a friend of King Mickey,
Oh, that's adorable.
and this big airship from Bravely Default that's like about the size of a city, I have that be kind of like a mobile traverse town, because due to plot reasons, worlds are still falling to the darkness and the door wasn't closed. And so Ringabel from Bravely Default kind of plays a recurring character role. And like I use similar principles when working on Inverted Fate, where I really like to make the world feel more fleshed out and explore character dynamics that might not get the same spotlight in the official work.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, one big thing with Inverted Fate, because the story is longer overall, is like I get more time to show rather than just kind of infer or talk about interactions. So like I can have characters like, say, Sans and Metaton talk to each other in a scene, or like have Alphys, Papyrus, and Frisk all interact with each other in the same room, or just give more time to like more minor characters like Napstablook. It's just fun to really bring these settings and kind of give them a bit more connective tissue, because while I love Undertale, I also feel like in terms of its character placements, the different areas of the game feel pretty isolated from each other for the most part. Like, Papyrus will mention Alphys and Snowden, but then they don't really interact much in the game, which for a small indie game, that's fine, because it's got a certain scale and it does really well with what it sets out to do. But for me as a fan work creator, it's like, I want to go deeper.
Yeah. I could totally see like in a post pacifist thing, like Papyrus being like, Alphys, I know you're a great scientist. Could you? And I know you've done great technological advancements. Could you please help out the great Papyrus with this? And so it just like make like it's like different stuff to like enhance his magical abilities and all that. That'd be great.
Okay, but like the thing that people sleep on is that Papyrus knows how to do engineering. Like he made the Gauntlet of Deadly Terror himself, and that.
Yes.
And they also kind of sleep on the fact that he's got a lot of artistic talent. Like he painted a rock formation to look like a bridge. He made that intricately muscular snow papyrus. He's clearly got a lot of skill in crafting.
I know personally how much it takes to make a snow papyrus.
Yeah,
awesome.
Cupcake made a snow papyrus. That's like her that's like her most like thing on Tumblr.
It is.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Considering how much work you put into it, Cupcake.
So hard to make.
I bet, because snow can fall apart so easily, and getting it to maintain like a stable, upright shape, that's no easy task. So like, hats off for that for sure.
Did you just say that was snow easy task?
But like honestly, I am a really big Papyrus enthusiast. I got a freaking 20-minute video I made a couple years ago, basically like, hey, you guys, you do realize that a lot of the fanon stuff about Papyrus is wrong, and here are examples from the game because I am a nerd and I overanalyze these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Dork series also seem to be the queen of unintentional ships because it's happened 3 times now. What does that mean?
Okay, so basically, when it comes to my relationship with shipping, a lot of the times I won't go in intending to ship something, but then the character chemistry will just kind of click, and I'm like, oh, dang it, I kind of like that dynamic. What the heck? And like, that especially happened with Antipode, where, like, I was always going to write Riku and Kairi, and I was always going to do Riku, Replica, and Naminé, because those are ships that I am really personally attached to. But then, of all the things to have as an unintentional ship, freaking ring a bell for Bravely Default and Aqua. How did this happen? Why does it work in this AU context? Why? And, like,
Yeah.
Bravely's a more niche Square property, so I don't expect a lot of people here to know it, but, like, he's this over-the-top, charismatic ladies' man who's actually really freaking smart and pretty perceptive when he's not being a total foot-and-mouth syndrome when with the way he talks to people, mostly ladies. But he does have a lot more character complexity and tragedy to his character that has made for an interesting dynamic between the two, especially with how I adapted him to Kingdom Hearts. But then with Inverted Fate, the funny thing to me is, like, normally I'm really neutral to most Undertale ships that aren't, like, things where it's like, I'm not trying to insult anyone when I say this, but I'm not, like, into stuff like Franz, for example, for obvious reasons. But, like, when it comes to more popularized ships like Capitan or Soriel or stuff like that, I am very much like, if someone makes it work in a fan work, cool. Otherwise, just kind of shrug. But then somehow people really got into Inverted Fate Capitan, which I wasn't even intending to write. But I'm like, oh, well, they actually have really good character interactions in this comic, so I can see why people really like that dynamic so much.
Yeah. Pancakes asked, what was the original plan for Mad Dummy before the Switch version of UT was released with Mad Mew Mew? If there was a plan.
If there was a plan.
Honestly, most of the Mad Dummy stuff would be exactly the same. The main change, and this is with the Mad Dummy fight, was that because when I scripted it originally, there was no Mad Mew Mew concept. The way they were going to defeat Mad Dummy was going to be realizing, okay, so they can't just spam the hell out of her. They can't just use force, and this obviously is not going to end anytime soon. So Kara and Frisk would conspire to just keep checking Mad Dummy, and Kara would keep coming up with really increasingly annoying quips until eventually Mad Dummy would get so mad that they'd merge with the robot body, and that would be a nod to the Glad Dummy situation. But when Undertale Switch came out, I was like, no, this Mad Mew Mew concept actually has a lot of potential, because throughout the comic I had Mad Dummy's ghost kind of interfacing and controlling other machines and robots and stuff. So that plus the split soul mechanic, I had some lore ideas for that would be really applicable, and I don't want to go into too many spoilers since not everyone here's caught up. But
yeah, we don't want to turn this into the okay, if you haven't read Inverted Fate, don't watch this video.
Yeah, I'm trying to be vague here, but basically that plus having this conflict about her just wanting to find the perfect body and all this stuff, like in Undertale, and that she was kind of putting on an act and kind of just trying to behave in this certain way to impress Undyne and seem like this really tough, cool, competent training robot, and also the whole motivation to get Frisk's soul so that Undyne doesn't have to be the one to make that move and ruin all their friendships. But having her embrace the cute cat girl body worked well for giving a much more emotional connection between her and Frisk and Kara in the resolution of that fight. But also, there was a bit earlier in the comic where she had an interaction with Royal Guards 3 and 4, and she made some quips about cats and the color pink that, like, in hindsight made the Mad Mew Mew body really ironic. So it was like, yeah, you know what, this is so much more satisfying than them just being shitty to Mad Dummy until oopsie merge happens.
Yeah. Undertale's ships are a huge hit or miss. That's a weird thing. That's a weird thing. Like, for me, like, with my main ship being Frisk Real, a lot of times when I say that, most people are just like, either okay or what? It's like it's one of the most neutral opinions ships you can have, and and of course there's like people who love it a lot and stuff, but I've never found anyone who actively really hates it or anything like that.
It's depends where you look, because like there are some people who are really aggressive to people who ship Karisk or Friskriel because of their personal interpretation as them as family, and like I absolutely get that, but at the same time, it's important to remember that in the context of Undertale, whether or not Frisk views Toriel as their mom, whether or not they would view Asriel or Kara as siblings, all of that is left completely open to player choice. And it's important to just be mindful that with the ability to interpret certain aspects of Undertale, not all headcanons are like universal. For example, not every Frisk is going to be nice to Monster Kid. Not every Frisk is going to like butterscotch. Some might like cinnamon. Some might choose to be ambassador. Some might say, no, thank you. I'm literally just baby.
I am child. Please, no.
I think ultimately just people are allowed to have their comfort zones, but Friskriel overall, I can definitely see why people find it cute and wholesome, and just like this idea of the one person who can see past what he did as Flowey and understand what it's like to have the power to save and load. So I can see the appeal.
Yeah. There's there is a thing where there is a thing a lot of the time where with Frisker and stuff, a lot of the time it is like it's just like Frisk just like a lot of time Frisk just like flirts to Azrael. It's just like oh I'm so flustered, but it's like it's simplicity like that. But also there's there's a lot more to Frisk and a lot of people give it credit to. I did a whole big rant about that when we interviewed those daydreamers. You can go see that for yourself. I think it's about an hour and 30 minutes into the thing. But yeah.
Oh gosh, Soft, I know that feel because a lot of my Gaster thoughts for Inverted Fate are very much not the popular headcanons, and like not only is Gaster not like a major part of the main Inverted Fate story and mostly relegated to just like secret stuff you can find on the website and like one of the characters' backstories, but also I don't really ascribe to like him literally being forgotten by everyone just based on the fact that Asgore took so long to replace him and the followers never explicitly saying that, and that's gotten some people kind of frustrated that I'm not sticking to like no one remembers him, stuck in the void, and all those concepts are fine and they have made some really interesting fan works, but at the same time what I think people need to remember is that while these popular concepts have great fan work surrounding them, that doesn't mean they are 100% rigid in the context of Undertale, and people should be allowed to have their own interpretations for these more mysterious parts of the game.
Yeah. Jevil is Dimentio from Super Paper Mario mixed with Mario and Luigi villains. I mean, you're not wrong.
They're not wrong. Jevil, it would not surprise me if Toby was a Paper Mario fan, just because I feel like the writing in Paper Mario vibes a lot with the writing style in Undertale.
Yeah.
And like Soft says, people need to take work within the context of itself and respect that not every fan work has to appeal to every headcanon. Not every fan work has to have your OTP. Like, for me, with, say, Kingdom Hearts and me being a big Rikai fan, it's like, so few fan works have that ship, and I get why, because they don't get nearly as many scenes together, especially nowadays, and Sokai and Soriku are both extremely popular and thus get more attention, but it's sort of, at the same time, it's like, I should be allowed to write the dynamic that is fun. Please don't be mean to me just because I'm not doing what you think I should be doing. There's more than enough fanfic for your OTP. Just be nice to each other. Ships at the end of the day are just for fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Super Paper Mario fans rise up. Woo! I've only played like a chapter and a half of that game. I'm sorry.
But there's something that I have to say that that I have seen in a lot of my friend groups them saying recently. It's just because you have differing opinions from someone doesn't give you the right to be rude to them.
Yeah, well, like, there's a lot of fandom discourse in general. I feel like people, like, if someone's being really nasty and toxic and spreading hurtful things, like, yeah, by all means, block that person, don't engage with them, and you can tell your friends, oh, hey, by the way, but on the other hand, if someone's just doing something that you personally don't like say, someone likes the Frisk Rail ship, but is just trying to mind their own business, please just be kind to them and understand that they are tagging and marking their stuff, and if that is something that makes you personally uncomfortable, you can filter that and just engage with the content that appeals to you.
Exactly.
So yeah, Octopus. I got people who got furious at me for not writing the way they want. There's this one image from this one Steven Universe fan comic that I read back in the day, White Diamond Steven and stuff, where it's like the creator was like answering questions and stuff, and they made this little chibi thing of them like pointing to a sign that says it's my AU, I will do what I want, you can go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think in general, just the Sin Squad did a great video on this in Fandom Discourse, and basically her whole thing is like, people treat fandom like it's their personal house when it's really more like a neighborhood. And so
this is my house.
This is my house, and therefore all this work should cater to me and my comfort zones. And like, when it comes to works that present actually harmful views and things, like, then yeah, I completely understand being mad and wanting to discourage that, but I feel like there's a difference, and sometimes people try to lump in things that are much more murky than stuff that's clear-cut hurtful content. And just, maybe it's because I'm older than a lot of the people in this fandom, and I've been through that stage of fandom already from when I was in high school, but it's kind of like, people get very passionate about things like headcanons and ships, and like, they take something that doesn't click with that as like as like scary, but at the end of the day,
I took that personally.
I'm sorry.
No, that was that, you know, so yada yada, and then, you know, so I took that personally.
I'm so sorry.
That's what they are saying.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Honestly, like with fandom and stuff, you shouldn't, like, honestly, like how I see it is like, it's like a really big open room and stuff, and really you just like find your own like little corner of that room that you just be with. Maybe there'll be some people that like come in and hang out with you in that room and stuff, in that corner and all that, but it will always just be a little like little corner of that room and stuff, and I
Oh, okay. I will just, there's one question I want to answer real quick, and that was just about Fort Aquarius and the backstory behind that. To keep it brief, long story short, I wanted to kind of explore getting in the Royal Guard, like a bit more of a home base, also just give Waterfall a bit more, I want Waterfall to kind of stick out and have, like, Toriel would probably handle the guard with a bit more structure, I felt, as well as like some backstory involving previous humans and not all of them being pacifistic and that bringing in some kind of tragedy in the past. So having a fortress there is a consequence of that. And I just thought it would be a good way to show Inverted Fate moving from like the familiar into more divergent territory and being kind of a turning point.
Exactly, right.
All right, so it sounds like we're probably going to have to wrap it up pretty soon if Pasta's got to go.
Well, now I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Okay,
I didn't get for some. I wasn't able to say like I'll be back in a minute. I just said I have to go. So that was the reason why you were confused.
Did you get
But yeah, we should actually probably wrap it up soon because we've been going for like about, like 2 hours at this point, and don't you have other stuff to?
Well, the thing that was going to happen at 3 might not happen as quick as it was. So I have time if you want to go through any of your other questions. That's totally fine.
Yeah, hang on. Looking at the questions that
one that wasn't quite answered through our discussions. Number 4, Pasta.
Yeah. The designs for Inverted Fate are rather interesting. How did you conceptualize these designs for the characters?
So it kind of depends. Like, some of the characters, like the Royal Guard, a lot of them have kind of cosplayish designs, and that mentality was basically, okay, Alphys is a total weeb. Wouldn't it be interesting if, at her attempts to kind of give the guards uniforms and stuff, she modeled them after anime and video game characters just to kind of communicate just how different she is in handling the guard leadership, and her passing it off as like, this is clearly effective combat. Look at all these humans and other stuff in battle will do much better. So that was kind of like meant to be a wacky Alphys thing. But for the main characters, it varies a lot. Like Undyne with her high collar lab coat and stuff was kind of just meant to convey this sort of intense mad scientist vibe. The robot eye was like a design choice where it's like, instead of having an eye patch, a scientist Undyne with a robot eye would be cool, and then it shoots lasers because Undyne felt like it, and
heck yeah,
would weaponize a cool robot eye. Papyrus design is honestly really simple, just goggles and a lab coat over his regular battle body costume, and my thought was, well, it's still Papyrus, and I feel like he'd still want to have a cool costume under his lab coat because you never know when you'll need to prepare yourself.
Right.
Yes.
But he'd also take being sciencey very seriously and always wear his goggles no matter what he's wearing, because he has to show that he is a brilliant genius no matter the circumstances. Sam actually has 2 outfits. One is a golden suit of armor. The other is just kind of similar to Papyrus's battle body, except it's a padded t-shirt, and then he's got a regular kind of doofy striped scarf instead of a cape. And then he's got a blue vest with pockets that's similar color to his hoodie, and the mindset behind that was basically Papyrus made him a costume to help him feel motivated about him when he got into the guard, and Sans wears it because his bro is so cool and they have matching costumes. The scarf was just because Sans would totally not be the one to wear a super dramatic cape, but like a goofy striped scarf suits his demeanor more. And then the armor is just to kind of transition to when he starts picking up the slack and taking things more seriously, he's actually wearing his proper uniform. Metaton's design with the Kamina shades and the cape and the big spiky pauldrons basically is like, if Undyne designed box for Metaton, she would go over the top in anime, and I thought there would be some irony into having some Gurren design motifs, because in Gurren, it's humans under the surface of the earth, while monster-like creatures live on it, and I could see that being just kind of a funny parallel where it's kind of reversed in Undertale. And essentially, I just sort of built the designs sort of on the theming and character personalities, like Alphys having more mundane gray armor despite her passions for anime, kind of being her suppressing a lot of her personal passions while trying to play this stricter, more strong leader of the guard. And Toriel wearing mostly blacks and blues to kind of convey the sense of loss and mourning.
Hmm. Uh, if I ask, Pasta, will Dorked be on the Determined podcast in the future, or is it just this one time? No. She's allowed to come back whenever the heck she wants.
Yeah, though I don't want to
Yes.
monopolize it because there are so many other great people in this fandom who deserve the spotlight, and I think keeping with the spirit of the Determined podcast, like interviewing all sorts of creators is important. But like if they ever want me to come back and do another interview or something, I'm totally chill with that.
or or say like be a part of like a big like live stream event that we're doing, because like say it like for one, like our first podcast anniversary, yeah, the first anniversary of our channel is coming up in like a month or two, so
Yep, it is.
I mean, keep me posted, and like whatever day that's on, I can always try and request a day off or something just to make sure there aren't scheduling conflicts.
yeah.
Day
Let
is
it-
that, Pasta? I forgot.
let me check. Okay, well, here the question is, first off, one thing, holy crap, guys, thank you for getting us to close to 300 subscribers. We only have 3 more away from that. That is great.
Whoa.
Yeah, we just like passed 250 like two or so episodes ago. So yeah,
Hey, congrats.
yeah. So yeah. Okay. So when it comes to the first one that we uploaded, that's actually May 23rd. That's actually sooner than I thought it would be. But yeah, May 23rd. And when the channel actually joined was May 6th, 2020 of last year. So yeah, we'll probably do something special for that. And as soon as I say we're close to reaching 300 subscribers, we're now up to 303 subscribers. Holy crap, guys, you are great.
Oh yeah.
And now it's 304. Guys, stop being so nice.
Stop being so nice. Being nice is good and makes the world sparkly in rainbows.
Who wants that? Anyways, yeah. Got one more question for you.
Okay.
And then we'll probably end it off. How do you feel about your placement in the Undertale fandom? This is the question I usually try to end off my interviews with. Let's get
That
this
is
to
a very
350
good
subs. I would love it, Brendan, but it's probably not going to happen. I'd say that and watch it does like in the next 20 minutes.
I will say it's been really interesting in terms of my place in the fandom, because when I started out, my project was definitely more niche and kind of a dark horse project, because so many people would brush it off as just a version of Underswap, or complain that it didn't swap enough characters, or the sprite comic format wasn't as popular. And so it took a long time for Inverted Fate to really start carving a niche for itself. And I think over the years, as more people have hopped on and supported me, I really appreciate especially Teen Switch and Vulture's help in kind of getting exposure out there, because Story Shift was at the time super duper big, so she would sometimes promote my content, and that helped my audience grow. The various Discord communities I was involved in and just interacting with other content creators helped for its growth, as well as all of the awesome people who joined along the way. I would say it's definitely had its ups and downs. When we came back from the Undyne hiatus and when Merg started covering Phillips Games, there were a lot of new faces becoming aware of the AU, and it was really cool to see more people discovering Inverted Fate and engaging with it. But at the same time, it's been a little bit intimidating too, because when we would release new episodes during that kind of bomb we had every few weeks, there would be like over 1,000 people in the YouTube chat, and it would be going so fast and really hard to keep track of everyone. And so, like, on one hand, super grateful, really happy, excited to see what the future brings as Inverted Fate gets closer and closer to the end of its story. Probably gonna wrap up in 2022, maybe early 2023, depending on how long it takes for the production. But it's been awesome. I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'm glad that I've been given so many opportunities to meet great and talented people along the way. When I started this, it was really just a silly hobby project, but it's become so much more. And I'm really grateful to opportunities like this, getting to talk to people and answer questions. And just, yeah, overall, I definitely don't regret starting Inverted Fate. And I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now.
That's great to hear, Dorked. Yeah, with that, I think we're going to leave it off here. So yeah, thank you, Dorked, so much for coming on the show. It's been great.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. And like I said, if you ever wanted to have me on the show again, just let me know. Hopefully a couple weeks in advance so I can request a day off if necessary. But yeah, thanks again. And thanks so much for everyone to answer the questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everyone's questions at this time. And I guess if people ever want to ask more personal and directly, I do have a Discord server for Inverted Fate that I'm pretty active in. So that's one way to get more answers, because the ask box on my Tumblr is scary and it like over 3,000 asks. And it...
Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Also, thank you, Cupcake, for being here as always, being a wonderful co-host.
You're welcome.
See you around.
And for considering next time for us, next time we have a number of options that may or may not happen considering the state we're in. We are actually thinking about having the developers of TS Underswap on next time. Which would be incredible because their fan game is incredible, and also there's there's the possibility that we might actually get Jackie on here, which would probably make my head explode and stuff. But thank you all so much for coming. Thank you all for all your love, support, questions, and just being a part of this at all. And we'll see you guys next time. And remember, stay determined.
Stay determined.
Yep. All right.
And yeah,